So you've got this great following. You just were in the Wall Street Journal. And I know you and I were texting back and forth, and you're like, "Oh, this is, I knew you were excited about it, and you should be." And I read the article, and it was great. How did that evolve, and what have been your thoughts since it came out?
Regret is the first word that comes to
Okay,
mind. Deep regret is what comes to
really?
mind. Yeah.
Is that because you felt like they didn't portray what you told them well enough, or do you
I
feel like it was gotcha journalism?
I don't really know what happened, and I don't
Okay,
want to like
yeah,
accuse anyone of anything. So I was basically contacted by a reporter, and he was lovely. I really like him, and he basically said, "Hey, we're doing some stories about the financial impact of divorce. Would you want to participate?" So of course I'm like, "I'm an open book.
sure.
Eric, I'll tell you anything." Which careful with that stuff. It was
Yeah,
a very learning for me. So I met
maybe
with
just not jump into the yes. Maybe let me know
him.
more.
I don't know. But it's funny because I did ask him, like, "Well, tell me," and it was basically a series called, they were calling it Divorce Week. I'm like Shark Week, like a Divorce Week.
Yeah.
And they were going to interview a number of people with looking at divorce, all tied into finances
Uh
because it's
huh.
Wall Street Journal, but like different topics. And one, it's funny. And I think by speaking to the people, they were figuring out kind of like what their themes were. So we talked for maybe a good hour, I want to say, just about like nothing around like, why'd you get divorced? Like, and I would never do anything to negatively represent my ex because he's a dear friend. But it was more about what was it like going from you're in this, and this is, transparency, and this may land in a tone deaf way, but I had a big, gorgeous house, in a gorgeous neighborhood on a beautiful street, and it was a brick colonial 5 bedroom with the white pillars, and it was beautiful. And it
And
was
to
one of
be
those,
clear, just like as you're framing that, because the things that pissed me off about the comments I saw, you earned that. Like you were contributing to what that was. I mean, that isn't just like, oh, I had it and I lost it. That was you. You had investment there in your own contribution. So I
thank
just
you
want to
for
reaffirm that for you. So
I forget all of the assumptions because the reality is, I've been in sales my whole life. I was in a very lucrative, I was lucky. I was happened to be really good in this one sweet spot in sales at the time. I was in there at the right time and I made a lot of money. And we were, my ex did well too, but it
sure.
was primarily that job that like paid for most of our wedding, like our big gorgeous Manhattan wedding, and the down payment. It was easy because very grateful for that. And then we both contributed equally for the 20 years that we lived there, where incomes were, pretty much um, similar. And so, yeah, we had this house probably way sooner than anyone would have expected at that age. But we worked really hard. I went into Manhattan every day. It's just so going from that, when you sell that and then now you're renting and you're in a much smaller space and you don't own anymore, and we're old school. So we think like you own a home and that's what you need to have, and renting is bad. And it's very much like ingrained in our minds. Not
That
sure
was
if
our
that's
generation. I mean, it's a generational thing.
my
Yep.
mother still is like very
Yeah.
unhappy with renting. So there's like that stigma. So just downsizing. So I think my theme was, after he spoke to me a bunch of times, mine was going to be downsizing. And I told this story off the cuff. I was like, yeah, my 55th birthday, I had 10 of my friends over and everyone's like crowded around my kitchen island. And I remember this moment where I look over and 4 of my friends are like standing against the sink, and I like did not have place for them to sit. Like I have 5 stools. Like there is no seating unless we all go into the expansive living room, which is, it's all one room. So I was like telling the story about how, yeah, like in my old house, I used to have parties all the time. So that's how the story opened,
Yeah.
with that. But the whole theme, and I asked him, we talked about it, and the whole angle was, it was always going to be, what's it like from how you look at your finances, how you plan out expenses, things that you didn't have to think about before that maybe your husband, just it was through that lens. And that is not how it came out. it And it was exciting because I was like, oh, the Wall Street Journal. Ooh. And they're like, we're going to have a photo shoot. And I'm like, a photo shoot? And these two photographers came over, and I'm like, of course, I'm like,
They're great picks. I mean, yeah, yeah,
me, sure.
yeah.
And I was a photographer, so I used to be a photographer also, and I just love that whole thing. And these lovely, wonderful photographers came over, and they got it. Like it was a woman, and she was like, she was like, this is going to be aspirational. Like you could still have a beautiful place, and like that was her plan. That was my plan. I think the editors were like, we've got some gold here. Like we've got this chick over here who's like willing to say anything. She's talking about her tiny kitchen island. They asked me about my income. I did not expect that to be like in the first paragraph of the article. The internet hated me. I like it. First of all, it showed up on Facebook. I did not know the Journal, of course, they have a Facebook presence. So they've run it probably 3 times now. Like this came out a while ago. They put it up last week again. So the other stories probably had like, I don't know, 20 comments, 50. Mine had like 1,400 comments on one. They pushed it out again. It had another and it was, people said it was tone deaf. That the Wall Street Journal is very out of touch. It very much became about, I think, like income inequality, and I was kind of like the face of that. And I do believe that they knew what they were doing, and I don't blame the reporter or the photographer by any means, but they knew what they were doing. They knew the headline. They knew putting that in the beginning, my face, that headline about downsizing, and it worked.
Yeah. Well, I knew you were excited for it, and I felt bad that was the kind of response and reaction you got. But you could see that they definitely took some liberties, obviously, in the interview, and sensationalized, because sadly that's the problem with media today, right? Is at the end of the day, it's about clicks, it's about views, it's not about the quality of the content, it's not about even truth selling any longer. It's just what are we going to do to get get more eyeballs on this thing? And the way that they framed it, I think they did a huge disservice, not only to you, but also to their credibility, because I think that was just a really shitty thing to do. And then to have you have to deal with all the hate that you got from the comments, knowing you, through the limited lens that I do, I know that was not, at all. Like I knew it was like a complete miss on that article, that they just missed, meeting you as a person, understanding what you had gone through. I mean, the time that you and I first talked in November of 24, you were the most thoughtful, very inspirational, trying to figure out, how you can contribute and add value to people. And that's what I've seen ever since then. It's what I saw prior to that, which is what attracted me to even reach out to you. But at the end of the day, they missed all of that in an attempt, I think, to really get more views on it, which I think is just a huge, it's a huge disservice. So I feel bad for you that you had to deal with it, and it just sucks. So
it sucked. And my brother, he said it's something called engagement by enragement.
Yeah.
And
that's a great term. Yeah.
I believe that's what it was. Like, even you hear like rage bait and stuff. And I think they didn't report anything that I didn't say.
Sure.
I said those things. I probably said to the reporter, like, my friends couldn't sit down. It sucked. Yeah. It did suck. Like, who wants to have people in their home, whether it's you're being a good host. And I wasn't like, I miss my dining room table. It wasn't like that, but the way it was portrayed. So a lot of the comments were like, let's start a GoFundMe for her dining room table. And there are some funny ones, like one, 2 people had the same funny. It was, maybe she should put less avocado on her toast. I was like, that's funny. And then one person was like, oh, I'm so sad. I can't have my buttery lobster anymore. So I'm going to have this delicious steak. Like it was, so some of that was funny, but it was tone deaf. And the concept was how your life changes going from 2 income, bigger space to smaller space. But instead the focus became my income, my rent. It is almost $5,000, and it's not. I don't live in like a fancy schmancy. It's what it costs to live in New York, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunately, and it's ridiculous. And did I ever think that? Never in a million years. So
Yep.
that's not my fault. And so people are like, "Well, why does she live there?" I'm like, "This is where my parents live. This is where my
Yeah.
people live."
Yeah.
And also, like you said, I earned it, but it didn't. And some of a lot of comments are, of course, claiming that like I took my ex's money, which is far from the truth. And one comment was really awful, where one guy said, and it's Facebook, so it's connected to your actual, like, it's wild to me how
Yeah.
people were just free with their words. So one guy said something like, are we supposed to feel sorry for her? Her ex, really dodged a bullet. And then the next person wrote, and she deserves one. And like
Ugh.
50 people like that comment. And I'm like,
That's,
Jesus, like, is this what, and I'm not trying to, but you hear about people getting like death threats, like celebrities. And like,
yeah.
I'm like, I see, and not that that's a credible thing, but, and I had this experience before where when I first was talking about my divorce, when I first started out, I was talking about dating, and I was talking about my first dates, and, very publicly, very sex positive, if you will, like very open about just everything as a, woman in my 50s, what it's like to go out and date a man. And both of us have been in marriages before, and just that whole experience and the stories. And then I had 4 different people send me links to YouTube accounts that I did not know existed, and they're run by men, and it's like a cartoon face. So it's not even their face, and a fake voice. And they would take content of all these women, so anything about breakups, divorce, like anything with women, and string them together. So there were probably, they probably took like 5 of my videos and made different posts. And then they would pause the video and say like, fellas, can you believe this woman? She has the audacity, and like thousands upon thousands of comments underneath these videos, clicks,
Yeah.
monetized. And it's not even the monetization, but it's just like the monstrous things. And they all said the same thing. She took her husband's money. He's probably with someone younger. He's so much luckier now. And then they would talk about how I look. They would, say disparaging things. And one guy took an entire video of mine, put it on X, on Twitter, and he got 1.4 million views.
Oh my God.
Thousands and thousands of comments. So I've been through all of that, but those things are more anonymous, like, because it's people on YouTube in like the, creepy parts of the internet.
Yeah.
But to see it on like Facebook and on LinkedIn, it's on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on, where it's connected to real people. And it's like, that really hurt my feelings. And I could say like I'm badass, whatever, but that was rough and disappointing. That was never my intent.
It's horrible that you had to go through that. And it's horrible that people feel like they can just say anything that they want on any of these platforms, and there's no ramifications for that. I mean, at the end of the day, these keyboard warriors, when you think about it, it's like, it's easy for someone like me to say like, that stuff doesn't matter. You can ignore that, right? No, bullshit. That hurts. That hurts bad.
Right.
And, for someone that, has the type of career that you have and the kind of impact that could have in terms of, just you professionally, that's got to be a concern. Obviously, the fact that, people look at something like the Wall Street Journal article that happened most recently, being the, sort of this truth sayer that they supposedly always are, and then they sensationalize this BS that they did. It really broke my heart for you just because of that. And then, you compound that with people that just feel empowered to say any damn thing that crosses their mind. It's just not right. But I want you to know you're an absolute badass. I think what you're doing out there in the world is just so necessary and needed. And honestly, the more hate you get, the more that it means that you're making a difference. It's one thing for an article to be positioned the way that they did it. The other piece is that people can hate on you online because you're doing the things they don't have the courage to do. And I think that is something that you you definitely should take solace in. And not that anybody wants hate. No, nobody wants to, have to see these things about themselves. But at the end of the day, you also have to consider the source, from, these individuals that just feel like their entire purpose in life is to make somebody else's day shitty. It's sad. It's really sad. And it's more an indictment of them than it is of anybody that they go after. But, at the end of the day, it's still hard when you're the person that's the target.
It is. And it's funny because I was going to ask the reporter at one point, like, oh, are you going to put like my TikTok handle in there? And I was thinking like, something told me just leave it out there. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because it brought all of those people into my TikTok community. And that's like a sacred space to me where, yes, I will get, occasionally I'll get the men that will come in. It's because it's mostly men that'll come in and hate. But I think if that had happened, I would have shut my account down. I think I would have been like, yeah, I'm out, because I get less and less of those comments now on my TikToks. I did kind of like a year and a half ago, I used to get a lot of hate from guys. And I kept thinking like, this is not for you. Like, why are you here? Like, go look at, I don't know, guns or whatever you do. Like, get out of here. Like, leave me alone. Yeah. This is women. Go away.
Yeah.
So I do get some of those now, but I'm so glad it didn't come over, because that would have been hard for me.
Yeah.
And now what I'm doing, I do get, intermittent. I will get, like I got one the other day where I posted that I was at my boyfriend's son's his college graduation. Mm-hmm. And I was saying like, this is a real experience right now. Like, this is not my son, but I'm there at his college graduation. I love him, but I'm not his mother.
Yeah, it's different.
Boyfriend partner. So it's like, where do I fit in? Like, what role am I playing? But I'm so excited to be here. So I just was like sharing, like, I'm at the graduation, and one person commented like, I don't understand why people feel the need to record, just be present, or like, it was kind of a nasty comment. And then I was like, I don't understand, so I think what I'm going to start doing is just being like, I don't understand why you would take the time to do that. Like,
yeah, I don't understand why you feel the need to actually comment. If you don't like it, scroll on by.
And or just being like really honest, like, you probably, and there was another guy who wrote like blah, blah, blah or something. So I just wrote back like, I'm not sure if you know, but that's really mean to do. Like, that was my feeling. That your intent, almost just like put them on the spot. Like, what are you doing? And if it stops like 5 people from doing it, then maybe that's my public service. Like, stop trolling people.
Yeah. I mean, get a life. I mean, honestly.
Be a good person. Be kind. Like, why are you putting this mean energy out?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. I'm like a big. You're a kid of the '70s, so you remember MASH, right? Alan Alda's like a big. I still love that guy. He has a podcast called Clear and Vivid, and one of his first interviews was Sarah Silverman, the comedian.
Yeah,
and she was talking about online hate and one of the challenges that she experiences dealing with that. And she gets a lot of, because she's Jewish, she gets a lot of that type of hate. She gets a lot of, you're not funny, and you're, comments about her looks or whatnot. But this one guy had just been consistently harassing. And so one day she figured out how to get a hold of the guy. And she said, look, you're entitled to your opinion. And in fact, I'm never going to like block you. I'm not going to not, let your comments come through. And I'm not even going to hide these things. But it really says more about you, and it really concerns me that there's just something off. And the guy responded to her back like, yeah, actually, he had some challenges, disabilities. He'd really, been hurt by, his dating life or whatever. I'm kind of paraphrasing because it's been a few years since I listened to it. But she actually ended up connecting with him and actually having a conversation and realizing this guy is mad at the world. Wow. Mainly because he has nobody, right? And it was really kind of a really interesting juxtaposition about the fact that she's like, fuck this. I'm just going forward, and I'm going to like figure out what's going on here. And if this guy's still going to hate me, the guy ended up being so unbelievably blown away that she showed such empathy and kindness towards him. Certainly not suggesting you do that, but at the end of the day, it did remind me that sometimes people, if they were to, as I tell people when I do trainings and whatnot, it's like, if if you're going through your grandma lens, if grandma was looking at what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're doing it, would she be proud of you? And nine times out of 10, we'd all be like, oh, shit, I'm not sure. But in that instance, she sort of used a similar situation with him, and it completely turned him around. And she was like, if you're struggling, I'll help you financially. I'll be here to talk to you. Right. Whatever you need to get out. And it ended up being a thing. And I remember Alan Alda just like, how do you like have the courage to do that? And she's like, if not me, why, who? Right. Cause this guy clearly, vacillated on her, right? And sort of obsessed over her content. So maybe that was the only one that he did, right? And so she was like, so why not take a chance? And she was like, I wasn't going to meet the guy in person. I wasn't putting myself in harm's way necessarily, but to show heart and empathy is not it's still something that people sometimes need. And sometimes the people that are doing the worst are the ones that are crying the most for attention.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I'll try and find that and I'll send that to you via email. But it was an interesting episode, but it kind of stuck to me. It's like that is certainly a way to go against the haters. The kind that you get obviously is I just feel bad that people feel so entitled that they can do that. But you are, even though I said it doesn't make a difference that I say this, but at the end of the day, what you're doing is really necessary and needed out there. And you're doing purposeful work and you show up as the authentic version of yourself, don't ever change. Don't do anything because of criticism or because some, dipshit editor kind of repurposed an article, because that would be a travesty and you'd be costing everybody else the ability to see your greatness.
Thank you so much for saying. I love that story.
Hey Ripplers, before we jump back in, I want to take a quick moment to share 2 ways you can go even deeper with us. First, if you're enjoying this podcast, you'll love our paid subscription offers on both Substack and Patreon. That is where you'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes insights, and extra resources about connections and relationships that you won't read anywhere else, plus a few little other ditties. It's a great way to support the show and stay connected between episodes. And let's be honest, if you're craving something even more immersive, and who isn't, check out our Connect and Grow Ripple coaching program. Man, this is a full year of coaching, content, and community designed to help you become a more engaged connector and leader in both life and business. I love this program. I think you will too. You'll join a vibrant community of like-minded Ripplers to gain access to master classes led by dynamic experts, including me, attend live workshops, group coaching sessions, and get the accountability and actionable strategies you need to build more meaningful relationships to create an even bigger ripple effect out there in the world, which who doesn't want that? You can find the links in the show notes to sign up today. Hope to see you over there. Ripple on.
It's funny because I did feel empathy for the YouTube guys, for sure. Mm-hmm. I was like, these guys, they were so, I know there's like the manosphere and, toxic masculinity and all that stuff. And it was obviously, I kept my joke was like, I found the people that stormed the Capitol. Like I found you, that's where they are. You're looking for them. But you could feel just like the anger and there's something there. And I think I have thought like there's a bigger story here. And I think it is tied into, obviously, because there's a whole movement of like women who don't want to get married again and don't want to even date again because they're peaceful and they're happy and they just feel like I've got my friends, I've got my whatever it is. And women, the reality is that, the whole marriage as an institution and the evolution of it. And I just saw this Oprah on her podcast about, it was gray divorces and it was really great. And it was about just the divorce rates for people in their 50s. I don't remember if it's like, I don't know. I forgot the statistics, but it was wild.
Huge. Yeah, it's pretty big.
Huge. Yeah. And just speaks to, and it maybe how men are feeling. And I think, so I do try to have some compassion around, I always try to think like people do the best with what they have. So I don't know what that person's situation is. And, so thankful. I had a beautiful upbringing, an amazing family, and maybe they didn't. And, I got divorced, but my ex is a good person and I didn't have.
And you're still friends. That's a hell of a testament right there to the relationship. So it just changed phases, right? It's just, and a lot of people can't even understand how that works. But at the end of the day, you're actually setting an example for anybody to be like, this is what's possible, right? This could happen if you're willing to get out of your own way to let it happen, right? I think everybody has this tendency to like drop the battle lines and, who's right and who's wrong. At the end of the day, who gives a crap, right? It's a circumstance that needed to happen. It's a change in life. It's not comfortable. It's not happy. But if you allow yourself the space, not only can you heal, but you could also heal that relationship in a way that is pretty inspirational.
Oh, I love how you just framed that. Yeah, because people don't understand it. And they're like, how could you be friends? And I kind of felt like, am I weird that I'm friends with my ex? But it's my life. Like, this is my reality. And I'm not going to not, I'm always going to care about him. I'm always going to want that.
Of course.
He's my father. He's my, my parents, that's their other son. Like, he's part of the fabric, of our lives, so to speak. And I want the best for him. And I hate that it didn't work out with us, but I want, ultimately, I care about him. And I think that's, people can't wrap their brain around it because they think divorce means bad and you hate that person. And it's like, it doesn't, sometimes, unfortunately, but thank God it isn't that for me.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's technically, really a blessing, that you guys have found that space together. And, like you said about the people that, sort of say, hey, I don't want to go through that again, or I'm comfortable, I'm good with the environment that I'm in right now. I think the biggest thing that I think, especially in the reason I think people in our generation that are kind of coming to realize is, I mean, you remember when we were kids, like we would think 50 was like freaking ancient, right? It's like now, like at this age, it's like I still have, I'm still like a 5-year-old kid sometimes. But I think where we come into our own presence and authenticity as individuals, I think really starts to happen in our 50s, because we start to recognize where we really want to be, and where we want to be is happy with the one relationship that is the most important, which is with ourselves. And I think that those that have to define themselves by labels or expectations or whatever society norms are, I think the people that can get past that and eclipse that and be like, hey, look, if I find it, great. If I don't, it's okay too. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to be present with myself, whether I'm with my friends or I'm out in a social setting, or if I'm sitting, at home in an apartment. I'm just happy and content that I've found that pace of my life, which I really deserve at this point, because at the end of the day, I've spent so much time absorbed around kids or, another, relationship like a spouse. It's really good to have that presence of mind to stop and say, I'm good. And this is where I want to be. And, what happens in the future is really unpredictable, but where I'm at right now is really a place that fulfills me.
Yeah. And I'm happy for the people that are in that space. I was just never, like, when I did get divorced, I wanted to find someone. Like I wanted to, like, I wanted that romantic love. And I would always marvel at my friends. I'm like, why aren't you guys dating? Why aren't you on the apps? Why aren't you out there? Why aren't you this and that? And then after going through it for a while, then I understood. I'm like,
now I know why. Yeah.
Now I know, because my most peaceful, happiest times were when I was not going on dates or being or liking someone.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I just, I think there are some people that want that, are going to continue to pursue that. Mass amount of people that are like, I'm good.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. Good.
Yeah. But the ones that do go back into it, now you have a different set of expectations and a different reference point. You also know, hopefully with the confidence, that I know what I'll accept and what I won't. And that's a position of power as well. And that's a maturity level that I think you only recognize when you have gotten comfortable in your own skin and stop defining yourself based on the eyes of someone else. And I think that's important. So you definitely do that. And I think the relationship you're in now, I think is great to be able to reconnect with somebody from, those early days of kind of that young adult life and be able to turn that into something significant today. I mean, hats off to you. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel really lucky. And it's very difficult to be in a relationship after you've been married and you have all your stuff, and, being at this age, coming together with someone it is not easy by any means. And it's very easy to just be like, forget it. I'm not doing this because it's too hard. But when you do find someone, I'm very lucky that he's worth going through that stuff with, and hopefully feels the same with me. So I do feel thankful, but I do also think, like, what if this doesn't work? What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know if I have the capacity to do it again. I think I'm like, yeah, I'd be good. I had another great relationship, and I'm content now.
I'm tapping out. I'm out. Yeah.
Now let's go out on a high. Like, all right, nay.
Well, I think the best advice I could give you would be like, just enjoy the ride now. It doesn't really matter what happens down the road. I mean, worrying about, whether China's going to invade. I mean, we could all be freaking out over that, but does that serve any purpose in our life today? No. I mean, the reality is you just got to live for the moment. And, as long as you're having fun and enjoying the experience of this other person, and, see where it goes, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, there'll be somebody else out there. So don't worry about tomorrow too much.
No, that's a good point. And just really staying present and conscious of, yes, thank you. That's good advice.
Well, listen, I could talk to you all day. I just have enjoyed this so much. But I want to be respectful of your time and return some of your weekend to you, because, I know you work hard during the week. If you're okay with this, just as a way of wrap up, what I normally like to do is I ask these what I call ripple connection questions. They're just a little bit, they're fun questions to ask. There's no gotcha questions, but they're fun to answer because they give you a little bit more insight as to who the guest is, if you're okay with it. Again, no gotchas whatsoever, but I've got to ask you, what do you consider your superpower?
I think making people feel comfortable, making a person feel comfortable immediately, and kind of developing a connection with someone, a stranger or whomever, very quickly.
I love that. Yeah, I can see that for sure. When you consider the experience and the journey you've been going through over the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years, what have you learned about yourself in the process?
I mean, I would say we talked a little, I think at the beginning about resilience. So I think I am absolutely very resilient. I think I have a core belief inside that everything's going to be okay. And as much as I can reconnect to that feeling, I think that's what gets me through. So I don't know if that's like faith or just a belief. And I often tell myself, like, everything's going to be okay. It actually already is. Like it already is. And as long as I can keep coming back to that and reconnecting to that, and sometimes I might freak out and panic and I struggle, with anxiety and other things, but it's when I come back to that core belief, that's always what gets me through.
Cool. That's a good question. That's a good answer to that question for sure. Where do you find your motivation and where do you find your inspiration?
My motivation probably comes from just how I was raised, and being kind of told, to take advantage of, like the things that you're good at, whether, like you're smart, you should be out, pushing yourself because you have these gifts or whatever it is. And so I think the motivation was probably instilled by my dad, by constantly, you don't get a B, you get an A, you get an A+. Like that's not okay. So I think that constantly it's always in my mind, like dad's going to be mad. My inspiration, probably just other people. Like when I hear other stories I get inspired by people. I have a genuine curiosity about people. So it could be something just as small as like a friend of a friend that I meet at a party, or a child that I meet, or it's probably from people. That's where I get my energy. I'm like an energy vampire.
I love that one. You mentioned your friends that are kind of your ride or dies. What does it take to be a great ride or die friend, in your opinion?
I think probably staying connected to the person, making sure that they know that you love them. And I'm not always the best about like calling people. I probably have like 5 friends that are mad at me now. But it's like, I can't. I don't know how people do this. But I think taking the time and the effort to let someone know that you matter to me, you're important to me. And especially when someone's going through it. Like I have a friend right now that's going through something really painful, and I sent her a voice note this week just to be like, I think you are so freaking incredible and brilliant and smart and beautiful. And I just love you so much. And I hope you know how much we all love you. And I was kind of like, is this corny to send? Like,
Nope.
she's a friend. She's not like one of my best friends, but I like she's become close. And I was like, and I'm just going to send it. And then she shared something back with me that she struggles with like anxiety or panic. And I struggle with panic. So then I told her like how to do this breathing technique. And so even though sometimes it might be uncomfortable for you, put yourself out there, take the risk.
I love
to
that.
show that person.
That's such a great response and great feedback in terms of how to be a good friend. You are clearly that. And by the way, I think voice notes are one of the best ways. I mean, texts are, I wish we didn't have them. Right? At the end of the day, the voice notes, there's just something about hearing the other person's voice. And even if you're just saying, hey, look, I was just thinking about you, wanted to let you know you don't need to call me back. You don't need to reach back out. I just want to let you know you're important to me, and I was just thinking about you. Those things just have a way to make a complete difference in somebody's day. So definitely not corny. I highly encourage it. So yeah. If you could give one piece of advice that everybody would see on the way into Manhattan or driving into work or on the way to school and home at night, what would that advice be if it was on a billboard?
I mean, I talk a lot about relationships and marriage, and I'm very fascinated just by the whole thing. Like what makes for a good relationship and why do some people, God, but if I had to distill it down, I mean, there's that cliche of like, okay, I would say something like, don't think you're better than divorce, because you're not.
Yep.
Like it's not, because I was the person who was like, we're never going to get divorced. Like we don't ever want to, and it's just, you might think it's never going to be me and this and that. And it's just, then you just don't know what's ahead of you. So I think, don't think you're above it.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Advice, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that for sure. When you hear the term, the ripple effect, what does that bring up for you? What does that conjure up?
No, I think it's interesting because when you said before about someone being a rippler, and I think about it's the cause and effect, or it's the, for me, it's got divorced, moved into this apartment building, met all these women who I didn't know before who are now like my close friends. And then the effect I've had on them and the like all of the little spider webs in a way that come from certain choices. And I think about, then it's my TikTok, then it's this, and it's, maybe it's something I said that some person heard and then realized I'm going to do better with my wife, or I need to not be afraid, so I think it's the, right. Like it's a stone in a lake and the impact it has on everything else.
That's a great answer. What positive ripple can I be looking to create for you?
I guess if there's folks that are listening who want to follow my account on TikTok, probably just that, I think, and I think even just ideas for, because sometimes I don't know where to go with it, or, I kind of say like, why am I doing this? Why am I subjecting myself to this torture? I'm not making any money from it. Like, what am I doing? But I think you've helped me through this conversation, give me some clarity about why. So if you think about ways to reinforce for me why I'm doing it is helpful.
All right. Well, anytime you need that, I'm only a phone call or an email away, or a text. So I will step up to the plate anytime you need it. But you are doing something that is necessary and needed. You are, without question, a rippler. You're creating positive ripples just with the content you're creating out there. So keep doing it. The world needs more of what you're bringing to the table. So don't ever forget that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. Well, and just because you mentioned it, how would you like people to follow you? Just on the TikTok, tell them what your handle is again.
So it's a ridiculous name, but that just
it's an awesome name. It's an awesome name.
It's so my name's Ileana, so it's Illy. My nickname ILLY, so it's Illy in the streets. Is my handle, and that's basically because when I got divorced, I was like, I'm going to be in the streets. And stupid as it is, or funny, or whatever it is. So it's Illy in the Streets. So, and I talk about,
it's
life in your
awesome.
50s, dating in your 50s, being in a relationship, going through a divorce, like all of the 9,000 ripple effects, literally, of ending a marriage and all the things that come after that, or could, for me at least. I can only speak to my experience.
Well, it's definitely worth following, guys. I want to make sure that you guys get that, so we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. But Illy in the Streets, I'm so grateful that you agreed to be on here. But no, it's, in all seriousness, Ileana, this was my honor. I'm so grateful that we stayed at it and finally found a date that we could actually both be in the same place where we could actually record. And I'm just really, really in awe of everything you're doing, and grateful that we've been able to connect and hopefully become friends. Certainly I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And if I can be of service to you in any way, shape, or form, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, guys, we'll be back with another episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast very soon. But until then, Ileana, ripple on.